What's the construction loan we can get
for a renovation?
Like a FHA construction loan.
203K.
203K.
Yeah.
Have you ever gotten one of those?
Nah, never had to do one.
But that one,
the 401k loan was dope. Now the caveat is you can't get a 401k loan and then go blow the money, right? Because you have to pay it back.
Yeah.
And so, is there a risk? Absolutely. Because if I buy a property and then like I pay too much for it, if the property's losing money, now I'm paying the property and I'm paying back my loan.
Yeah.
And so I'm losing all kinds of money. But I bought a property under market value, the cash flow paid back the loan. I put the difference in my pocket. And so like I went from like when I bought that first property, like to go from 90 days of having a panic attack to then owning an asset that's paying you money every month. And then the bank came to me after we bought it and said, hey, you bought that house for 114, it appraised for 155. We can give you a line of credit on the equity you have. And so I was like, yeah, okay. So they did it. Then I ended up with like another 20 something grand that I could use to go do another deal. And like when you're having a panic attack about money and 90 days later you own an asset and then have 20 grand more to go do it again, like
right,
the light bulb went off in my head. Like, no, this isn't a one deal a year thing. This is like as many as we can get as fast as we can go. So that's when it was like go time for me. And so then I started to work with this bank and do more deals. And as what I started to realize working with this bank was like they needed me because they were a small local bank. They wanted, right, that's why they came to me.
They
and
need
said,
that money working.
Let's do a line of credit because they want to do another loan. Then they said, well, let's go buy another house because they want to do another loan. And I started to realize that like the relationship was important to them. Loaning to me was important to them. And so then I started asking for like, hey, I want to do more deals, but I don't want to bring money every time. And so I've now worked it out with the bank that I'm working with that like, I'll keep bringing you good deals under market value if you keep loaning to me without me having to put 20, 15% down every time. And that's kind of what got me to being able to scale. Because when you don't have to put 15% down every time you buy a deal, the only thing stopping you from scaling is deal flow. And so I just figured out how to get good deal flow. And I would use these small bank loans and I was just stacking deals, man.
So is that still the same bank you use now? The one?
Not that particular one. I have another bank that I use now. But I have like, I use the banks that I use are like tools in the tool belt. Each one has different utilities, comfortability in lending and how they want to lend. And so like I have one that'll make me put 10% down, but they can close in like 7 to 10 days. And so I can compete with cash offers.
And is it still like
all
4%?
You crazy wholesalers out there going nuts? I can compete with y'all with my small bank.
With your small.
Yeah.
Is that one still 4%?
For the interest?
Like,
4.25. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about the terms you get from these fucking banks, dude.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anybody getting terms like this.
Yeah, man. The terms are awesome. So it's a lot of people don't realize these small local banks, they have products for real estate investors. Like they're called construction loans, and they typically do them for new construction, but they'll do them for fix and flips and rehabs and all that stuff, right? And so for me, I have to, so I'll talk typically, so not just what I get, but typically what you'll find is they want you to put 15 to 20% down, and they'll give you a construction loan. And so that means if you're going to buy a house that you got to fix up, so let's say you're buying a house for, 100 grand, just for ease of numbers sake. I know we're in California, that shit's impossible. But let's say you're buying a house for 100 grand and it's going to cost you 20 grand to fix it up. The bank will loan you 85% of the purchase. So they'll give you 85 grand and then they'll give you all 20 grand to fix it up. So all you got to bring is a down payment. They're going to fund everything else. They'll give you that on a note that's a 3 to 5 year adjustable rate period. So they'll say your interest rate's 4.25% for the next 3 or 5 years. You get to pick. They'll give you an option, right? And so that means that's going to be your rate fixed for 3 or 5 years, and then it'll adjust up or down based on whatever the prime is in 3 to 5 years. And so you're locked in at that rate for 3 to 5 years. It's on a 20 or 25 year amortization typically.
Okay.
And then there's a construction period. So while I'm renovating the house, I'm not making principal payments. I'm making interest only payments during the renovation.
That's
period.
a good ass
So it's
loan.
super cheap.
Yeah.
While I'm renovating it, then you stick a tenant in it or you sell it. And so a lot of the times for these flips, I'm making interest only payments
on 4%.
Yeah, and then I sell it before
so
it ever goes principal.
You can even buy more than anyone else too, just because you don't have this much holding costs.
Yeah, the holding costs.
No points.
Low. No points,
dude.
No points. Origination's cheap. Closing costs are fairly inexpensive. It's a great tool that a lot of investors don't utilize.
Is a small local banks.
Small local banks. And it's a relationship business. So are you going to have to put money down? Probably your first couple of deals.
Yeah.
But if you work that relationship and they start, because it's a two-way street. They want to loan to people who are going to bring them low risk investments.
Yeah.
Right. So if I buy a house for 50 grand that's worth 150, they're like, yeah. Because if I stop making payments, they get a house back that's worth 150. Like they'll make more, way more if they get that foreclosed on and then have to sell it themselves than they ever will on the interest.
They just got to put it up,
right? And so they're like, this is a risk-free investment. Like, yeah, Henry, bring us more deals. And so because you're bringing them investments that they know they're going to make money on, whether you pay or don't pay, right? And they're local. They keep their loans in-house. They're not selling their loans to anybody, so they can be flexible on the terms. It allows you to say, look, I've done some deals. You've got some trust in me. Here's what I want, right? I want to be able to do more deals and put less into the deal. They'll now know, yeah, we can do that because you're bringing us deals with huge amounts of equity. Everybody wins. And so if you build that relationship, you can get pretty optimal financing. Now, every bank's not going to give you those kinds of terms, but I tell students, you keep shopping until you find the one that will. Small banks everywhere.
That's right. Jake, will you turn down the AC, bro? I'm freezing. I'm freezing, bro. Where are you finding these banks?
Literally, man. So the best place to find them, and where I found most of them, is going to RIAs. And either people from the banks will go to the RIAs because some of the people from the banks are also investors, or they're in there looking for investors to lend to. And if you don't see any banking contacts at your RIA, just ask the active investors what banks they're using, and you'll find some banking contacts for people you can work with.